Got this from the BBC. Trump demands Iran's unconditional surrender. Oh, boy. Now, this is a live tracking page. It says Trump says we are not going to kill Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He says we know exactly where the Ayatollah is. He is an easy target, but is safe there. But he warns our patience is wearing thin and then posts unconditional surrender. It has been 5 days since Israel began attacking Iran. Both sides continue to fire at each other. Iran warns people in Tel Aviv and Haifa to evacuate, while in Tehran there are reports of more explosions. Many Iranians are trying to flee to Iran, but others warn they have nowhere to go. The U.S. says it is not involved with Israel's airstrikes. Whether it eventually joins is in the 3,000-pound question, writes Frank Gardner. Now, according to The Hill, the U.S. is positioning its military to potentially join the Israel war with Iran. We've got reports of fighter jets mobilizing. I think we might have some images. There's refueling tankers are continuing to mobilize. It seems now, it is very clear that the U.S. is getting ready to join the war. Jack, we're going to join the war?
Well, I suppose it really comes down to how you define, are we joining the war? As we've seen, Israel thus far has conducted a range of strikes on the nuclear program, but also on oil infrastructure, oil facilities, missile defense, missile silos, airfields, airports, et cetera, and military leadership. If President Trump so chooses, I think the big question has been specifically on the nuclear facilities that reside at this position that are far lower, the Fordo site, far lower than any of the Israeli bombs or missiles can be able to penetrate. So that's really one of the big questions, although I'm told that at the National Security Council meeting this evening, a range of options were discussed.
A range of options to do you think it's likely, because right now it's my sense that there's still support, basically what we're seeing is support aircraft and support systems. Do you think it's likely that the U.S. joins and actually strikes?
Well, at this point, that's one of the potential range of options. So one option could be pursue diplomacy for longer. I think a lot of people think that ship has sailed at this point, given just reading the tea leaves and seeing everything that's going out there. And so the U.S. military pre-positioning all these forces creates optionality for the president as commander-in-chief. And no decision has been made yet, as we've seen this idea that he was going to give remarks hasn't come out yet. And so those options range from potentially just this limited strike against certain facilities, all the way up to a wider range of strikes, all the way up to, and Lindsey Graham's, the senator, and a lot of the neocons are really calling for this full-scale regime change operation in Iran right now, led by the U.S. military, working in conjunction with Israel and others.
Does anyone around the table think that an actual regime change effort is something that's realistic in the future, or is that something?
There's the probability that it does happen. I think the probability is low right now. I think U.S. strikes are incredibly likely. It's a random ballpark number, but I'd say 65-70% that the U.S. does some kind of airstrike. I'd say maybe a 30% that we simply engage in assistance of Israel, like refueling and things like that. And then maybe single digits, full-on regime change.
I think it's worth mentioning that it's been MAGA doctrine since Trump has been involved in politics that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. When President Trump first began getting involved in politics during the Obama era, one of the constant things that he would rail against President Obama was how weak he was on the GCPOA, on the original Iran deal. And it was clear that from then, and he released recently like a press statement, and even on his Twitter, his rapid response Twitter account, going back like a decade, there are videos of him saying, I would not allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon. And even today, in response to a question about how Tulsi Gabbard said Iran isn't getting close to your nuclear weapon, he said, I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having one. So I think that he's actually been very clear on the facts of the case here with not allowing Iran to get a nuclear weapon, and I think he's fulfilling that promise. So as far as I'm concerned, I think this is promises made, promises kept by Donald Trump. I'm satisfied and from our ally really doing our dirty work. I think that the Jews are doing our dirty work in the Middle East and diminishing Iran's offensive capabilities against us. I think it would be a good thing if our allies took care of our enemies as well as Israel did our enemies. Like if South Korea took care of the North Korea issue, or if Japan and Taiwan took care of China, or if Europe pulled their weight over with the war against Russia and Ukraine.
Is there anywhere in the world
agree.
that you
So,
think
like-
that we shouldn't be at war?
You
No,
think everyone else should
I
be at war on our
agree.
behalf?
No, hold on. If the statement
that our
is,
allies shouldn't.
if the statement is Korea should be responsible for itself and Israel should be responsible for itself, and we're not involved in any of it, done. Agreed.
That's a good ally, an ally that is able to diminish the capacities of our enemies and isn't burdening us. I think Ukraine's been a burdensome ally. They haven't been very
They're
successful in
not
pushing
an ally.
Yeah.
We sent them a fair amount of military assistance. I don't know
Okay,
what we call
so you're
them,
saying
but-
colloquially, you consider them they're not a formal ally.
We're
And they are
basically
a
their
massive
sugar
threat.
daddy at this point.
Yeah.
Is there a list? I mean, I was in I was in the U.S. military, I was in the intel community. I don't remember getting this list of these are the countries that are allies and these are the countries that are.
Well, I could tell you for sure the countries that yell death to America and death to Israel are definitely not our allies.
so like Canada.
We have
Not our allies.
So we should
sure.
bomb- so
and I
should we
think,
bomb
and I
Canada?
actually think there are many extremely
should we
subversive
bomb
Canadians
Canada?
in our
Should we
media
bomb
system.
Canada?
I think we should get rid of many Canadian
do
media
you
figures in
mean
our
by
country.
When you say,
actually.
what do you mean? Get
Deport
rid
them.
of?
I'm being dead serious right now. Actually, I think there are
wants-
many subversive
he wants to
Canadians
deport Viva
who
Frei.
are involved in our media ecosystem who don't speak for making America great again.
like who?
Jordan Peterson?
There's many of them. Jordan Peterson, Steven Crowder, Lauren Chen
Crowder's
for a
American.
while. Okay, what didn't he grow? Okay,
No.
misquote him.
You grow out of it.
I think there's some Sarah girl. There are a lot of Canadians involved.
Who is it?
Sarah
Lauren
girls.
Southern?
Lauren Southern.
She's retired.
I mean, she's
Lauren
yeah, she
Chen.
has I would say Jordan Peterson's probably the biggest Canadian that's like
Jordan and
involved.
Michaela.
Yeah.
But like they're not. I mean, is he calling for U.S. intervention in war?
I haven't seen.
I think we also need to differentiate between war and a strike. I think we're mobilizing to end up hitting this nuclear facility Fordo because we have particular bunker busting bombs because this nuclear facility was built into a mountain. But we didn't go to large scale war when we killed Qasem Soleimani in Trump's first administration. So I think we're going to see a rehashing of a similar strike on this nuclear facility in our limited involvement here.
It is, in all fairness, very different striking one guy and like bombing multiple facilities in urban centers and governmental targets. That being said, any one of these strikes could be seen as an act of war, even killing Soleimani. So you said the differential between war and strikes, and it's like, why? One begets the other.
Sure, well, it didn't in the case of Qasem Soleimani.
I think, and it's fair to say, I genuinely believe if the U.S. did launch strikes on Iran, no one's coming to Iran's aid.
And it
Like,
would
if
be foolish of Iran to respond against us.
They're not going to, and I don't see any like the BRICS nations, Russia or China, wanting to get involved in this because Iran's not a great ally. They're politically weak and isolated. There's some reason to be working with them, but right now, I think the best thing for the U.S. is just to do nothing, not be involved in this. Israel's, you know what I'm hearing? Everyone's like, wow, Israel's doing a really great job with air support. It's like, oh, great, they don't need us.
Yeah.
Okay, we out.
Yeah, that was the interesting thing because I remember all last week there were people saying, Israel's got this. You remember this, right? Like Israel's got this. We don't need any help. We're good to go. Don't worry about it. We're a good ally. We're pulling our weight, as Aled said, and we're good to go. It's okay, all right. So we're sitting back and we're watching TV, and then all of a sudden, like within 24 hours from the initial strikes on Thursday night, going into Friday, and then Bibi's all over TV saying, the U.S. needs to come in. The U.S. needs to come in. The U.S. needs to commit to regime change. Ending the nuclear program means regime change. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. I've got whiplash here watching this guy. Like, you said this was just about the nuclear program, and now without even taking a breath, it's immediately also about regime change.
Who was it? Was it also Lindsey Graham? I think was it?
Well, Tim. Technically,
her
Tim has
period.
not, or Lindsey Graham has not changed his position on that.
Right.
He has always been for bombing Iran to get regime change.
right?
The speed at
Totally activated.
the speed at which like it has gone from Israel starts actually striking Iran And the U.S. has basically said we didn't know anything about it, to now the U.S. is entertaining, or at least some people are entertaining the idea of a regime change. War is incredibly fast. It's been days. There's no lead up, no anything. It's just this surprise push for not just U.S. involvement, but U.S. to take the lead and try to go in and do
with
it.
no discussion.
Seems like
With no discussion.
No discussion, no debate, please.
It seems like that's just been the purpose all along. For me, my big question is why now? Because we've been told for 30 years now that Iran is close to getting a nuclear weapon. So I think I'm at where a lot of people are at, that I just have a bunch of questions and no real answers.
If I understand correctly, part of the why now is because of how badly Iran planned their attacks against Israel when they started with Hamas on October 7th, then going to Hezbollah. So really, Israel just started disassembling all of Iran's ability to influence and pay people to strike it.
Israel, you know what's crazy what you mentioned about, and you're right about the military window. There's no question about that. But think about what we were talking about a week ago. Just when I say we, I mean sort of the royal we as like the podcaster sphere,
riots,
online sphere. It was riots. It was immigration. It was illegals. It was rounding people up. It was these cases which were marching through and Trump was winning. And there was so much mass appeal for, I think I saw a poll, like a mainstream poll saying it was CBS, 55% of Americans saying they supported all illegals being deported, not just MS-13, it was all. And there was this massive push for full-on immigration or illegal immigration pushed out. And then suddenly it's like that's evaporated overnight.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.